Jim was despondent, to say the least. His marriage was finished, his life was finished, everything was finished. How could she do this? Why would she do this? All that was left was how to salvage his existence from the smoldering wreckage. He had left Morrison's, went back to the hotel, grabbed his stuff, but left hers. See if she can remember where she left her things. Zexy undies, cosmetics, husband. Then he left and checked out, headed for home. Home? You've got to be kidding. More like a haunted house. And he was the newest ghost. Well, this ghost was about to be haunting somewhere else. Jim pulled up in his drive and parked the Ford Explorer in the driveway, next to his F-150 4x4 pickup. He went into the house and it hit him. Silence. Like a tomb. He started to cry. He sunk down in the living room and bawled. He kept thinking of his kids. It just pulled him farther down the well of despair. For the next hour, he wallowed in self-pity. Then his mind snapped. It just broke. He went to the liquor cabinet, picked up the half-empty Chivas Regal bottle, smashed the neck off it, and sucked down a good 6 ounces worth. He shook a little and spun and threw the bottle at the fireplace, smashing their framed wedding picture over the top of the mantel. He screamed and immediately sobered. "That's enough of that," he said out loud. "I'm not going to take it any longer, not anymore." He strode to his office and booted up his computer, glancing at his watch. 10:24 p.m. Let's see how much pain I can dish out to her before I leave. Because he had decided that that was his only option. Payback would be a serving of exactly what she had done to him, their children, and their respective families. He accessed their bank, moved all their savings in different accounts for vacations, household expenses, clothing, and such to his checking account. Total, $17,638.38. Not exactly Warren Buffet, but they were middle class. He took $2,500, leaving the rest there, and moved that amount to their savings account. Then he closed the other accounts, except savings and checking accounts. Then he drew up letters, one to his mother, one to her parents, detailing the events of the night and that he was leaving. Then releases to the major news outlets and newspapers, laying out everything that had happened, dates, times, names, and locations, and what he was going to do, and why. Dishing out her treatment to him as retribution. He loaded them and put them all in files, to be sent out at his discretion. Then he wrote a letter to Emma and one to Tommy, to be opened on their 18th birthdays. He printed them out and sealed them in envelopes. He would not be the bad guy, and he would hope that Linda would fess up to the actual events leading up to the separation. But if not, then the children would eventually know why their father left. He went into the bedroom that used to be theirs and pulled a duffel bag out. No suitcase. He got underwear, socks, sneakers, hunting boots, 3 pairs of jeans, 3 flannel shirts, 6 t-shirts, and his shaving gear. Then he grabbed his fleece-lined flight jacket and his parka and threw them on the bed. He stripped, went and showered, and then dressed in clean clothes. He put on his beat-up steel-toed work boots, laced them, and stood up. Took a deep breath. It's time to leave, he thought. He grabbed his NY Giants ball cap, his coats, the duffel, and left his room for the last time. Downstairs he made coffee, and while he waited for the pot to finish, he grabbed a yellow pad and wrote, "Linda, goodbye. Eat crap and die, hopefully painfully. Guess who?" He threw it on the kitchen counter and then threw his wedding ring on top of it. Then he went into the den, opened the safe, got his .357 Colt Python, strapped the holster to his belt, slipped the revolver into it, and grabbed the 2 boxes of ammo, his passport, the extra cash he had been squirreling away for their vacation, and their marriage license. He returned to the kitchen, tore the marriage license into 4 pieces, picked up a carving knife, and laying the pieces against the wall, drove the knife through them. He went to the refrigerator, grabbed the ketchup bottle, walked back over to the wall, and proceeded to decorate the license, the knife, and the entire wall in red. By now, the coffee was done. He pulled out a travel mug, filled it, fixed it the way he liked it, stirred it, and put the top on it. He put the carafe back on the hot plate and then filled the reservoir up with water. Thank God they had one of those cheap coffee makers that wouldn't shut off. He opened the refrigerator freezer doors, jammed a chair in the front of the 2 doors, and pulled the plug out. He grabbed another knife and cut the plug off the wire. Satisfied that he had caused some grief in her life, he collected his things and made his way to the garage. He opened the garage door. Then he went to his gun safe. She would never let the gun safe in the house. Said it was gross and dangerous. Didn't fit the decor anywhere. He opened it and retrieved his Winchester pump, his Weatherby 30-06 rifle, and all his ammo. He locked up the safe. Then his sleeping bag, two-man tent, ground cloth, and fishing gear. He went to the F-150, opened the cap in the back, stowed everything in, grabbed the two 5-gallon jerry cans, and secured them to the inside of the bed and closed it up. Again, thoughts of his poor children and what would become of them surfaced in his mind. He moaned and staggered against the truck. Was it the right decision? Was there a right decision? He had no idea. No matter what he did, he was screwed. It would haunt him for almost 4 years. A living hell, a torment that would eat away at his soul for the foreseeable future. But he felt it was all he had, and it was what she had given him. He got in, tossed the house keys on the floor of the garage, and didn't even bother to lock anything or close any of the doors. With all the lights blazing, he backed out onto the street and drove away. He checked his watch, his Stour Dua Volta watch that Linda and the kids had given him for Father's Day the year before. She had shown him the ad that said, "For the man who gives everything and expects nothing." Huh, bullcrap. But it was a nice watch. At least, he thought it was. He also thought it was expensive. Huh, again. Turns out she had paid $79 for it on sale. That's about the sum total of his existence. Sorry. It was about 1:30 a.m. He drove to the office of L.W. Stearns, a longtime family friend who thought of Jim as a second son, and always said that he thought Jim and Linda were the real deal and were in it for the long haul. He parked on the street and sacked out, setting his cell phone alarm for 8 a.m. The melodious alarm went off 6 hours later. He stretched and yawned, then finished the remains of the lukewarm coffee and picked up his cell. He thumbed LW's number and waited. He knew it was early, but he had to keep moving, and he wanted to get this done and be gone before he was caught, if she or anyone else were even looking for him. The phone picked up. "Hello?" said the strong voice on the other end. Even at 8 in the morning, the man was calm and together. No trace of sleep or irritation. Just LW, a rock in time of crisis. Well, that's what he needed now. "LW, I need you right now. Can you come to your office? And can you get a notary here too? I'll explain everything when I see you. Then we can talk, please?" "What's this all about, son? Is everything okay? Is Linda all right?" "Not over the phone. If you can't come, then you'll have to hear about it like everyone else. By word of mouth. Please, LW. For my sake, sir." "All right, son. Give me about an hour. Don't do anything dumb, at least till I get there, hear?" "Thank you, sir." He ended the call. 50 minutes later, L.W. Stearns pulled up and got out of his caddy. He locked it up and saw Jim approaching with an armload of papers. Handshakes were exchanged, and the two men turned and went into the 5-story building where L.W.'s office was. A brief elevator ride to the top floor, and then down the corridor to L.W.'s office. The office of one of the top litigators in the area, and Jim's longtime friend. He was more like a father figure to him since Jim's dad had passed away when Jim was 3 years old. L.W. had stepped up and been there for the boy, who was his best friend's son. They went in and went to L.W.'s office. He turned on the coffee maker and dropped into his chair, motioning for Jim to sit across from him, and then checked his voicemail. Then, "All right, son, what's this about?" Jim spilled everything, starting with leaving for the weekend away and ending with the call to L.W. that morning. By the time he was done, he was seething, but in control and not crying. Pissed, but not emotional. Yet, he thought of his children. He shuddered again. L.W. listened, occasionally making a note, but not interrupting. He finally sighed, pushed the yellow pad across his desk, and squeezed his temples as he shut his eyes. "I'm getting too old for this crap," he thought, as he opened his eyes and looked sadly at the young man across from him. He thought for a moment, then sighed again, feeling the constriction in his chest, and he leaned forward. "Son, you've been blindsided and crushed. I don't know what to tell you to do, so you tell me, what do you want to do?" Finally, Jim stared at the older man. "I want to kill them both, slowly and deliberately. But I don't want to go to jail. They aren't worth it. While it would give me immense satisfaction, it won't help my feelings of release. So I just want out. Not divorce. I want to do what she did to me. I want to leave. Walk away. Abandon her and the kids like she did. No thoughts, just like she did. Without a backward glance, without any notice, just gone, girl. You know, like the movie. That's what I want. He smirked and felt a little bit of peace for the first time since last night. Last night? He had forgotten that it had only been last night. It seemed like it had been ages ago. LW snapped him back. But what about the kids? What about the kids? Are they even mine? Am I supposed to have any consideration for them when she didn't? Am I supposed to worry about their welfare when she didn't even remember she had them? Not to mention that she had a husband. All she thought about was herself. Well, I'm thinking about myself. And myself says, duck her. But not by my dick. Not ever again. Yeah, I suppose I should have some compassion, but not yet. Now, will you help me? What can I do? If I understand correctly, I can just walk away and ignore her. It's not against the law, is it? That's what I want, just like she did to me. I left her more than $15,000 and I took nothing else. Not even my tools. She has her car. I canceled all the utilities and the cable. I canceled all my insurance policies. I want my 401k set up to pay for the kids' college when they get to be 21. Make them work for it. Also my retirement fund, what there is of it. Put it all in trust for them. Then I'm giving you power of attorney for me so that I don't have to deal with her ever again. Can we do this? Again, LW sighed and sank back in his chair. He stared at the man. He didn't recognize him. He had truly never seen a man so completely shattered as Jim was. It scared the living daylights out of him like nothing ever had before. And he had served 2 tours in Nam, back in the early 70s. He had watched his wife of 50 years waste away from cervical cancer. This was worse than all that combined. And just like the tragedy of his wife's passing, there didn't appear to be anything he could do about it. Yes, we can do that. She can sue for divorce on grounds of abandonment, but she'll have to find you. Or she can post in the local papers of your abandoning her and the kids. Wait 2 years and then it will be legal. Your kids will never get to see you. They will bear the brunt of this. And your mother will be heartbroken. Is this what you really want, Jim? How about counseling? Do you think talking about it would do? The look on Jim's face said it all, and about tore LW's heart out. Why? So she can cry and wail and beg me to get over it? So she throws the old, "It was just Zex, honey. It didn't mean anything, baby. We can get past this if you love me." No, I'm not going to put up with it. She did this. She gets to handle the crap that's going to come down on her. Consequences, LW. Consequences. Just like I had to handle it. All by myself, alone. Angling, he hesitated. Is it what I really want? Are you kidding me? What I really want is for this whole mess to be a dream. A ducking dream. A crap-ducking nightmare. But that will never happen. And I'm not going to sit in some godforsaken 10 by 10 room with the bitch and some goody two-shoes new age shrink telling me to get over it. I should forgive her. It was a mistake. It was only Zex. She really loves me. Think of the children. You can get past this. We can get past this. Blah, blah, blah. But you know what's even worse? After all the laws, the lawyers, the legal BS, the crap about what she did and what happened, can't we get past it? What about the kids? I'll take you to the cleaners. You'll be embarrassed. After all this crap and everything else that I can't even think of, do you know what? LW just shook his head. No. After all that, it's wrong. She's wrong. I was wronged. And there's nothing anyone can or will do about it. Sobbing, I finally broke down. I want my life back. I hesitated briefly. But that's not going to happen, is it? No, it's not. So if my life is over, so is theirs. LW thought for a moment and didn't see any way to get Jim to reconsider. He tried to stop the few tears that were starting to accumulate. No luck. Jim sniffed hard and cleared his throat. LW sat up and picked up his pencil. About that time, Penny Wilson, his PA and chief notary, came in and saw the 2 men sitting there in what appeared to be a very tense and emotional conversation. She hesitated, but LW motioned her to come in. He introduced Jim to her and said they would need some paperwork notarized. She nodded and went to get her tablet and some coffee. We sat and brought Penny up to speed. She had the grace to look on non-judgmentally, but you got the feeling that she didn't have much in the way of good feelings for my soon-to-be ex-wife. I already thought of her as not my wife anymore, but in name only. We drew up a separation agreement and power of attorney for LW and signed and notarized everything. The trusts were set up, with my mother and LW as the administrators of the funds. I gave LW the letters to the kids and Rose, shook hands all around with much sorrow and a somber, "So sorry," from Penny. Why did I feel very little in the way of sorrow? My life was ending just a day later than the actual end. I left and the day seemed not so dismal, still cloudy and crappy, but not overwhelmingly horrible. Can't understand why not. I left for the bank and withdrew the money from the savings account and closed it, leaving the bulk in the checking account. I got to my truck, started it up, and drove to a gas station. I filled the tank, the extra tank on the short bed, and the 2 5-gallon gas cans. Then I left for a small internet cafe. I got a coffee and a muffin. I like muffins, so shoot me. Then I spooled up my laptop and got online. I downloaded the files to everyone on the list. Her folks, my mom, then the ones to the TV news desks, and then the 2 local papers. Then to the Sharks front office and the NFL Players Association. Fat lot of good that will do, but hey, now everyone knows. I canceled all our credit cards, reporting them stolen. That's right, some SOB used my card to fill his gas tank. Damn the bad luck. I finished my coffee and got up to leave. The weather had started to clear. March outside of Cicero is crappy at best. Cold, bleak, and dark, as spring attempts to clear the air and take over, such as it is in this area, much like my outlook on life. It was a little past 2 p.m. as I hit the road and headed east, towards who knew where. I drove for about 7 hours, pulled over in a nondescript motel, and got a room. I awoke again early because I really couldn't sleep and drove for another 6 or so hours, winding up in Maryland on the Patuxent River, in the little town of Golden Beach. Small, quiet, not much going on. Definitely looked like a summer town, but in early March, not much. I pulled up in front of a small restaurant, Sally's, and went in. I'd have to change direction very soon because I was running out of road. On the other side of the river was the western shore of the bay, then the eastern shore, followed shortly by Delaware. After that, the truck and I will have to learn how to swim. Sorry, humor. It's the Atlantic Ocean. So I grabbed my road atlas, old school, you understand, and went inside. I looked around and noticed that just before lunchtime, it wasn't too busy. On the wall inside the door, there was a good-sized bulletin board, an old-school brown cork type, the usual small-town bunch of ads, help wanted, babysitting available, dog walking, cars for sale, and one for rent notice. For rent. Small 3-room efficiency, 1 bedroom, sitting room, kitchenette, stall shower, quiet neighborhood, no drinking or smoking allowed. $135 a month, cash, payable in advance, internet available, utilities included. 1 parking spot is included. Call 555-XXX-XXXX. References welcome. I grabbed the ad and turned to survey the interior again. Only about 4 or so people, only one sitting down at the end of the counter. I walked over and sat down. A mature black woman in a waitress's uniform walked over and smiled at me. Her name tag said, you guessed it, Sally. Go figure. Hi, hon, what can I get for you? Freshman. What do you know about this ad? I asked. She never looked at the ad, never broke from looking at my face, never lost her smile. She was studying me, assessing what she saw. Finally, she spoke. Right to the point, huh, sugar? Are you looking for a room? Short term? How about a job? You need a job too? Yes, and yes, I guess. Still, in assess mode, she nodded, reached into her pocket, and produced a cell phone. Hitting #7, she brought it to her ear and waited. 2 rings and then, hey, I got a person of interest here you may want to talk to. Yeah, looks clean. Respectable, might be okay. All right, sweetie, see you in a bit. She disconnected and put it back in her pocket. Sometimes they're more trouble than they're worth, indicating Verizon's finest. Then she smiled at me. Hungry? It's just about right for a late lunch. Nationality? I guess, maybe a roast beef sandwich, and a salad, ranch dressing, and sweet tea, how's that? Coming up, sugar, smiling all the way. She turned and went to get my meal. I wondered how this was going to work out. Late lunch arrived and it was great. There was also a helping of sweet coleslaw, and it was a bonus. I was polishing off my second glass of sweet tea, was almost done with the sandwich and salad, and took my time with the coleslaw when the screen doors opened, and in walked my future life. The woman was Oriental, maybe 42 to 45 years old, 5 feet 2 inches tall, petite, and very athletic looking. The man looked to be about 62 to 67, but he was not old. 6 feet 3 and about 220 pounds, tapered, chiseled, rugged looking. He could be a Marine Corps recruiting poster, come to life, and focused. He was wearing aviator shades, a t-shirt that said Hideaway Marina, and jeans, and made a beeline to the counter. He ushered the woman to a seat on my left, went around and sat on my right, removed his shades, pushed his ball cap back on his head, and stared at me with his deep brown eyes. "Please, have a seat," I said, somewhat sarcastically, looking back and forth between the two people. Now, there were 6 other seats at the counter, all unoccupied, and there were 12 medium-sized tables, 2 of which were occupied, and being served by the lone waitress. Sally was in control of the counter. So it would appear that these 2 were my interviewers. I held the man's stare, but it didn't faze him in the least. Then the lady started to speak. "Well, hello there. I'm My Lowell. This is my husband, Joshua Lowell. Say hello, Joshua." He grunted and never moved his eyes. He was studying me, analyzing me, dissecting me, if you will. His wife continued to speak, so I turned my attention to her. She had extended her hand to me, so I returned the gesture. We shook, and she resumed. "So, what's your name? Where are you from? And why are you here?" Taking a deep breath, I slowly reached for my wallet, produced my driver's license, and identified myself. I gave them a brief synopsis of my story, leaving out the significant, gory details. Mrs. Lowell pressed me. "So you are married?" Hesitantly. "Yes, ma'am." "And do you have children?" I hesitated again. "Yes, ma'am." "So where are they?" I bristled. "Don't know, don't care. Look, I haven't done anything wrong or illegal, maybe morally reprehensible, but I don't care. You've got my driver's license, and I'm thinking you have friends in law enforcement who can check me out. But if that's the case, I'm leaving. I don't need this crap. I am a man of my word. Maybe not of honor anymore, but I've had enough. Too much, actually." Subjected again. "Now look, Jim, I just want to—" The voice from behind me sounded like God. "That's enough, May." I turned and looked at her husband. The face had not changed, but the eyes. The eyes. He was not looking through me anymore. He was looking at me. She stopped talking, staring at me while I could see her mind working. Then Joshua started, and I spun to pay attention to it. "The rent is $150 a month, cash, payable each month for the next month. It's clean, the last one available on our property at the marina. The rent went up because spring is coming, and soon it will be in demand. I am also a man of my word, and a man of honor. If I say it's $150 a month, it is. From now till we part ways. If you're interested, follow us to the house, check it out, and we'll shake on it." My turn now. My eyebrows shot up. "Shake on it?" I spit out. "Like I said, a man of my word," he said. I thought for a moment, then nodded my head slightly. "Okay, let's go." I motioned for the check, and Sally laid a piece of paper on the counter. I was a little stunned. $5.12. You know, tax, she smiled. "That's all?" I asked. Her smile was now a flat grin. "Yeah, that's all." I stared back at her, pulled my wallet back out, and threw down a 10 and a single. $11. She grinned a mile wide. "Big tipper." "Thank you." She nodded to the Lowells and picked up the money. We left, with Joshua nodding a sedate greeting to 2 sheriff's deputies who had come in for coffee, and cops, right? And walked to my truck. Joshua nodded to a jet black 4-door Rubicon Sahara model, complete with oversized tires and a winch. "Follow us," he said, as he walked around to the passenger side door, opened it, and assisted Mai up onto the kickstep and into the truck. He shut the door, but not before saying something to his wife, his mouth breaking into a small smile and leaning in for a kiss. First time I'd seen him smile, I thought. His expression changed back to doom and gloom as he came around to the driver's side, all the while staring at me. He climbed in, started up, and left. Scrambling, I started the truck up, backed out, and followed. It wasn't hard, as the Jeep had a large Marine Corps sealed decal on the back window. Below, an American flag on the left side and a Vietnamese flag circa 1970 on the right. Old Glory behind the driver, the other behind the passenger. Nothing else. He drove for about 12 minutes, following the Jeep down towards the river, and turned right into a small, secluded driveway that led to an enclave of 10 bungalows, up on stilts. 5 on each side of the 2-lane paved road that ended at the parking lot of the marina, the Hideaway Marina. Approximately 36 slips, a long concrete dock sporting 4 gas pumps with a floating extension, a long one-story building with a veranda overlooking the river, and down to the right were sheds and a slipway with access to the water. They drove to the last unit on the right, a blue cottage with white shutters, up on stilts. It was behind the last of the work sheds, and a little closer to the river. They stopped and I pulled up into the marked parking spot. I got out and walked over to the older couple who stood watching me approach. I, however, was concentrating on the cottage. 8 feet off the ground, there was a stairway up to a small porch. Also, a ramp went along the back, rising about 4 feet, and dog-legging back to rise to the porch. The Lowells went to the stairs and climbed to the porch, but I went to the ramp. Well-constructed, set in concrete, with anti-slip treads on the deck. I climbed up and met them at the top. They opened the door and motioned me in. The interior was a small entryway opening to a kitchen area on one side and a small bathroom with a glass-enclosed shower across the hall. It ended into a bedroom on the left, facing the river and the buildings, and a living area on the right, facing the far-off rolling hills and the low forest. The outside windows were all jalousie type, fronting onto a porch that ran around the outside. The bedroom and living room each had a ceiling fan, and there was a small, freestanding wood-burning fireplace in the living room. No other heating or cooling units were in place. The ceiling was low, and everything seemed to be well insulated. Cozy, nice, like a cute little romantic getaway location. Maybe 1,200 square feet total. Don't go there, bud. Not anymore. Jim shuddered and turned to the Lowells. I'll take it. Not so fast. How are you getting thin? Not yet, sir. You offering? Joshua studied some more. Then he looked at Mai, then back to Jim. Maybe. What can you do? Licensee aircraft mechanic. Also, I'm a pretty decent carpenter and I can drive a forklift. Franklin raised his estimate of the young man about 1.5 notches. Okay, how about minimum wage, cash, under the table? Working for Hideaway Marina. We have a couple of uniform t-shirts. Wear them with jeans. Also, there are a few local churches and charities that occasionally could use some help. You liaise with them on an individual basis, in cash. Don't take advantage of them. We'll hear about it if you do, and you'll be out on your ear. Copy? Jim grinned. Loud and clear, boss. Joshua nodded and said, Tomorrow morning, bright and early, 0600. In the restaurant, the long building. Get there about a half hour early and you can buy some breakfast. We'll see what you can do. He extended his hand. Deal? Deal, said Jim, and took the man's hand. Thus began their odyssey. Over time, he heard their story, and they eventually got his. Joshua had been recon Marines in Vietnam, where he had rescued Mai and her family. They eventually were moved to the Philippines, then through Catholic Charities to the United States. Throughout it all, Corporal Joshua Lowell, who was smitten by the young lady, kept tabs on her. He rotated stateside and tracked her down in Oceanside, California. There he dated and proposed to her. He converted to Catholicism, much to her family's approval, but not so much his. Then, after marriage and a short honeymoon, the new staff sergeant and his wife flew to Paris Island, much against her family's wishes, where he assumed his position as DI. He had 2 overseas deployments, one in Desert Storm, and the other he can't talk about. He rose to the rank of gunnery sergeant and retired with all kinds of decorations and citations. Along the way, they had 4 children, 3 boys and 1 girl. All 4 joined the military at some point, 3 to the Marines and 1, the black sheep, to the Air Force Academy. Number 3 son. The daughter was also a Marine, graduating from Annapolis, and went into the JAG Corps. It turns out Mom and Dad are much better looking than they appeared. Joshua is 66 and Mai is actually 63, but a very good-looking 63. And they are as happy as is possible for 2 people as disparate as can be. The same cannot be said for Jim. It's been a little more than 2 years. Things have changed, some for the better, some not so much. I have come to accept some things. Doesn't mean I like them, but I accept them. I am still morose and keep thinking about my kids. This brings up feelings of despair, and I have to work to control them. Then thoughts of Linda and what she did. This elicits hatred. Sometimes I work to control those feelings. Other times, I use them to focus my energies on a problem at work. This works well, too. I am included more and more in the lives of the Lowell family. Their oldest son, Career Marine Master Sergeant Joshua Lowell II, single, stationed down at Norfolk Naval Base, would drive up and visit occasionally. Number 2 son, Michael, was a retired Marine, married, with 2 kids, lived in Mechanicsville, and worked as a deputy sheriff in Golden Beach. Number 3 son was a retired Air Force pilot who flew helicopters for the State Forestry Department, also single. Then there was my Angelina, Marine, of course, who had gone to the Naval Academy, then into the Marine Corps JAG office. 7 years later, she was discharged, a lieutenant, had her own law office, and was starting to get serious with a young pediatric doctor from Baltimore. I got on with things. I toughened physically and mentally. The weather was much nicer than Northern Illinois, and I learned to like it. I became more proficient with my carpentry skills, and being mechanically inclined and a licensed airframe and power plant mechanic, I was soon well-liked around town, and with my new boss. Eventually, they put me on the books, and I got raises and forgot about everything. Well, mostly. I also started a small business, hiring 2 young guys, one an ex-con, and the other a recently discharged vet. We were doing some remodels and home improvement/additions, and starting to make a name for ourselves locally. The younger 3 siblings spent quite a bit of time around the Lowell homestead, but all 4 had met me, and I gradually became accepted. It's been 2.5 years since I showed up, and I had settled in quite nicely. I impressed Joshua with my abilities and my work ethic. I was now making almost $20 an hour, now on the payroll, and was a valued employee, and a semi-official member of the family. But it was the bearing of my soul and my story to my benefactors that seemed to help my case. Mai was thunderstruck by what she learned. How could a woman do such a thing? What is wrong with her? And she has children. Oh, I'm sorry, Jim, I forgot. But that means you have children too. Do I? I have 2 human beings I care about, whom I have raised and cared about and have loved for their entire lives. But children? I'm not sure they're my biological issues. That would mean I have to believe the lying bitch. So you tell me. Sorry, Mai, I'm not over it yet. All the time Joshua was studying me, he never said much, but he sure did observe a lot. Till now. Young man, you're broken. I pass no judgment on your course of action because, well, quite frankly, you're ducked any way you go. Joshua! Windshield. Yes, dear, I apologize. The point is, you took a course of action and ran with it. There did not seem to be another avenue open to you. I don't begrudge you your choice. But you are broken. I know I said that already, but you're not doing anything to fix yourself. Whoa! I had been accepted into their family in the 3 years that I had lived here. They all had opinions about my course of action, but they understood why I had done what I did. But they were right. I was broken. I had no social life other than the interaction with the Lowells and the few people from the churches that I allowed to get close to me. I was a recluse. But I had Linda to thank for that. Linda. Linda with a capital C. For cunt. The self-serving, egotistical, narcissistic bitch who threw her husband away cavalierly to have a passion-filled night with an egotistical smuck. Why? Because she could. She was owed it. The woman who thought nothing of me while putting her own self-gratification in front of her family, children, and her loving husband. Why? Because she could. Because she deserved it. Because she wanted it. Because it was due to her. Why? Who the duck knows? I sure as hell don't. I started to think deeply and reflect on all sorts of things. I wrestled with my decision to leave, looking at it from every conceivable angle and point of view. I was no closer to resolving my problem than I was on that night. But I was distancing myself from the nightmare, starting to bury the hate and disgust that I had felt that night. I like to think that I am healing. So here I was, 3 years later, in a prison of my own making, held here by the ducking slut who kept me here by her actions and my lack of actions. I had almost forgotten about being worried about someone finding me. Almost would have welcomed it, I think. But all that was about to change. Because I was a nice guy. I was in town on a Sunday morning just after church, coming out of the small grocery store. It was a little more than 2 years in. I didn't carry the python any longer because I never bothered to get a carry permit. But the weapon was, along with the 2 long guns, registered in Maryland. I did purchase a standard police ASP, a collapsible whip-light club. I carried it when I was out and about for security and protection. Anyway, I was walking to the truck and I stumbled upon 2 individuals who appeared to be trying to take the keys, purse, and any other valuables from a young lady trying to get into her late-model Toyota Supra. She was screaming and resisting, but because of the area and time of day, not getting any attention. Enter Jim, sticking his nose in. I put the 2 bags of food on the hood of my truck, sprinted across the parking lot to the scene of the attack, pulled the ass spout, and flicked it open. As I reached them, I yelled, getting their attention. They spun around, and that's when I saw the gun. But I was committed. I brought the flail down on the prick's wrist as he raised the weapon, and was rewarded with a sickening snap as his wrist bones broke. I powered through him into the other punk and drove him onto the hood of the Supra, with his wounded buddy landing on top of him. The subsequent whoosh of expelled air left the 2 of them out of breath, but the screaming moans of the first one, coupled with the groans from the second one's fractured ribs as they slipped to the ground, were more than enough satisfaction for me. Breathing heavily as the adrenaline seeped away, I turned to come face to face with the diminutive female. She was short, about 5'3", but slim. Cute, but not drop-dead gorgeous like Linda was. Perky little boobs, but nice, slim legs and a killer ass. Long brown hair tied up in a ponytail. Librarian-styled black-framed eyeglasses. But the kicker was she was screaming at the back window of the car, trying to get the door open. I speed-dialed my cell phone and was answered by, "Hey, Jim, what's up?" Deputy Sheriff Michael Lowell, number 2, son of the Lowells. "Mike, I got a situation at the grocery store. Possible carjacking, mugging, attempted robbery, and that's when I realized there was a child in the back seat of the car. Kidnapping! Don't leave, we'll be right there." He ended the call and I turned to make sure the creeps were down for the count. I picked up the gun, told them to roll onto their guts and lay still, just like on TV, and backed up to the young lady. She was frantically trying to open the back door, so as gently as I could, moved her away and opened the door. That was simple. She was a little panic-stricken, I think. She dove in and scooped out a petite female, maybe 4 or 5 years old. "Are you guys okay?" I asked. She was crying, but gradually coming under control. She slowly dried her eyes, sniffled, and looked at me. She smiled and said, "Thank you. Thank you so much. They wanted to take my car and my child." "Yeah, not gonna happen," I said with a grin. She smiled more, sniffled again, and said, "Are you a cop?" Yeah, for some reason or other, I found my long-lost sense of humor. I grinned. Actually, I laughed, a little. I hadn't done that in a long time. "No," I said, "but I play one on television," with my expression breaking into a raucous grin. She, on the other hand, looked at me like maybe she should have taken her chances with the creeps. Just about then, lights and sirens, and up rolled Mike and 2 additional black and whites. He bailed out with his partner and rushed across, guns drawn. I held up my hands, holding the pistol by the barrel. Mike took the weapon and placed it in an evidence bag. "What happened, Jim?" I gave him the short version, then embarrassingly apologized to the young woman and Mike for my lame attempt at humor. That's when my world flipped. Again. I had introduced myself. "I'm sorry for my flippant remark. I was trying to be cute. My name is Jim Carlisle. I hope I didn't offend or scare you. Are you and the baby okay?" She looked at me and was trying to decide if I was honest or not. There were 4 cops here, and an ambulance had just rolled up. The 2 suspects were in cuffs and were being attended to, and an EMT was fusing over her and the little girl. Finally, the EMT said they were just shaken up, but to monitor their conditions. The lady looked back and forth between me and Mike. Finally, she looked at Mike and said, "You know this guy, Mike?" He grinned. "Yeah, I know him. He works for my dad and lives in the compound by the marina. He's a good guy." She turned to me and said, "Thank you, again. My name is Lindell, Emma Lindell." What the duck? I stared at the woman, but all I could see was my sweet daughter's face. Could anything more weird happen? Hold that thought. Mike couldn't help but notice my shock, but didn't catch the name Simile yet. He turned back to Emma and said, wait for it, is Linda all right? I shuddered and sagged against her car. She shrieked and recoiled. Mike reached across to me. I was a grown man and I was totally blindsided. I shook my head and looked around. The world slowly came back into focus. Linda, no, please God, no! That's when Mike snapped at what had happened. He shook me and slapped my face. Snap out of it, Jim. It's not your girls. Then he realized that Emma had no clue what was going on. He turned to her while supporting me and quickly apologized. Jim has had a very bad experience in his past. His former wife was named Linda, and his young daughter was Emma. But that's all I feel comfortable telling you. He's a good man. I trust him with my family's lives and would stand by him no matter what. Wow, I didn't know I was held in such high esteem. I thought they just tolerated me. I straightened up and felt better, but really embarrassed. Stuttering and mumbling profusely, I started to apologize. I was having trouble speaking, I guess, and making a bigger fool of myself while trying to get the hell out of there. Emma stopped me. Jim, Mr. Carlisle! It's okay, really. It is. Just take a deep breath and relax. Pemmi started to calm down, and Mike moved away from me. One of the other deputies came over and said he needed to get our statements and our personal info. So we took care of everything, while little Linda watched me like I had two heads, and probably neither one was human. Finally, Emma turned to me and asked if I would like to get some lunch. Have you ever eaten at Sally's? She suggested. Mike was watching for my reaction, and when I blushed and said Sally's was one of my favorite places, he started grinning from ear to ear. I looked at him, scowled, and he started to chuckle. Go get some dinner, Jim, and take your time. See you guys later. He left, smiling slightly. Now, what was that all about? I turned back to Emma and saw she was studying me. She cocked her head and said, Well, what do you say? I'm a little hungry. My daughter is probably starving. And seeming as how you're male, you're probably hungry too. Come on, it's on me. It's the least I can do to thank you. 3 years. Not since that night. I mean, I actually felt like a human being again. I was a little stunned at being like this so suddenly, but I figured, what the hell? I had been down so long that this feeling was totally foreign to me. So we went to get something to eat. We walked about 300 yards to Sally's, the town not being that big, after I put my groceries in the bed of my truck and locked the cap. We got to Sally's and went in. It was cool inside, but I was starting to sweat. Wonder why? Sally saw us enter and waved, then motioned to an empty table. We were soon approached by the wonderful owner, who normally policed the counter and left the tables to her girls to service. But we were an exception. Sally was grinning from ear to ear. So are you two going to ask for our heroes discount? I was perplexed, but Emma was snickering. Good news travels fast, huh, Sally? She said. Still grinning, Sally picked up the commentary. Mike's on the radio talking about the bust. Seems like Mr. Nice Guy here is already well known. Good work, Jim. I knew you were a good guy when I first laid eyes on you, Sugar. She was having way too much fun at my expense. It seems like the small-town ambiance extends to more than just atmosphere. I guess no good deed goes unpunished. This was reinforced by two older gents who came in, and seeing us sitting there, came over to the table. How do, Sal? Is the pie fresh? Said the first. Just took 2 new apples and a peach out of the oven, Rufus. Your pick. Cure, he laughed. Removed his Vietnam vet's ball cap and stuck out his hand. Nice move, young feller. It's good to see that you younger generations are not afraid to step up. I heard he had a gun. Stunned, I took his hand and got a warm shake. The second guy piped up. Always said Joshua had good insight to a man's character. He replaced Rufus's hand, also shaking mine. They nodded to my 2 companions with a gleam in their eyes and moved to the counter. Sally was in 7th heaven with the attention and was smiling to no end. Well, looks like you two will be a hot topic in town for a while, and that means my establishment will be home to our town's latest hero. Emma was also laughing. Can we get some dinner, Sally, before he gets too big a head? Blackmail, I was beyond embarrassed, and apologizing to both Sally and Emma. Sally suggested chicken fried steaks, French fries, and spinach with a side salad. It was the Tuesday lunch special, and although it was after 2:30 p.m., she was the boss. And if we wanted it, no problem. I nodded, and Emma said it sounded good to her. And mac and cheese and nuggets for Linda, please. It was the first time I had seen the kid grin, but she then lapsed back to a neutral grimace, again directed at me. It didn't seem to faze Emma, though. Sally left to put our orders in, and Emma returned to grilling me. It turns out that Angelina, Mike's sister, Camille, Mike's wife, and Mai, you remember Mai, right, had been secretly trying to arraign for our introduction. They thought she would be a good influence in my recovery. To Emma's credit, she was only concerned about her child and wasn't interested in any romantic entanglements. Fate stepped in, and here we were. So, Mr. Hero, she smirked, I know a little bit about you, but you know next to nothing about me. So let's start with me. I am 29 years old. I have been divorced for 3 years, but it was kind of academic, as my abusive son of a bitch husband was doing time in the state penitentiary for drug possession. He died in the exercise yard last year. I was one of Mike's sister's first cases after she set up her private practice. She was speaking quieter when she spoke about her ex-husband. I assume because her daughter was sitting right there. I am a CPA with a license in estate planning and investment certification. I have a company, actually, just my best friend and me and a secretary/notary. We do all right, have been in business for a little more than 3 years. So I was a little surprised when the two lowlifes tried to rob us or grab us or carjack us or whatever they were going to do. About then, she started to get emotional and began to cry. I guess the adrenaline finally wore off and she was starting to realize what had almost happened. I got up and went around to her seat, squatted down and wrapped her in my arms. Felt good. She was sobbing and wailing and little Linda started to cry also. So I reached out and corralled her into the embrace with us. We knelt there for a moment and the feeling washed over me. For the first time in more than 3 years, I felt normal, good, whole again. It scared me only because I never thought I would feel this way again. I looked at the cute woman in my arms and the little imp sniveling in our embrace. I didn't want it to end. That's when I looked up into the face of Sally. The very concerned black woman had a flat grimace on her face, the first time I had not seen a smile on her face in 3 years. She placed the iced tea and apple juice on the table as I started to splutter in explanation when Emma interrupted with a tearful, sniveling gasp about how it was an emotional outburst from the imbroglio that had occurred this afternoon. Sally softened as I rose and returned to my chair, but I pulled it a little closer to the two ladies sitting with me. Her smile had returned, and as she left, she winked, "At me!" I straightened my shirt and grabbed my iced tea, took a long pull, and then raised my eyes to Emma's. Okay, my turn. First, I apologized for my sudden snapback at the scene of the altercation. I explained that when she introduced herself and her daughter, I was taken by surprise at their names and the fact they were the same as my wife's and daughter's, except reversed. It caught me by surprise, and I wasn't ready for it. Again, I apologize, I told her. I proceeded to lay out my rather sordid, emotional tale, glossing over the more crude aspects, but making it clear what had happened. I did not hide anything, but I was not lurid in my story. She understood that Linda had cheated, dumped me, and ignored me in the worst way possible. I told her I was not proud of what I did, but that I didn't see any way around the ensuing catastrophe. Could I have handled it differently? Hell yeah. I'd been over this countless times over the last 3 years. Would it have been any different? For whom? I gave her back exactly what she gave me. As I laid it out to her, it was like a fog evaporated from my mind. A burden lifted, if you will. I know it sounds trite, but that's what it felt like, just like you read about. This woman was a totally neutral object who had no dog in the fight, so to speak. At least, I didn't think she did. But as I told my tale of grief, Emma's eyes widened and then hardened. She took it in and her mind was working. I would come to understand that that was what she did in her professional career and her personal life. Her personal life revolved around her daughter and everything in it, and to a great extent, her professional life concerned her Linda. As we moved forward, I became enmeshed in this, but that was down the road. She listened in rapt attention as I told her what I had done and how devastated I was by what had happened. How I signed everything away, taken less than half our funds. No, I never mentioned the miscellaneous cash I had taken. It was mine. Nah. How I had signed over all my extra amounts of money to my children's college futures. How I had just left her like she had left me. I know I was repeating myself, and could tell she was getting a little concerned that I was starting to lose it. I stopped and looked her in the eye. I thought I could see something, a soft caring there. I snuck a quick peek at Linda and was stunned with a pronouncement. She stared straight at me and said, "I'm not a bad Linda like she is." The child's innocent look and calm demeanor, along with the stare she leveled at me and held whilst sipping her apple juice, was mind-blowing. I thought of Emma, my Emma, and what she would say or do in this situation. I snapped back to staring at her mother and managed to catch a grin before she covered her expression up. "Mr. Carlyle, I apologize for the things I was thinking. I didn't realize how hurt you had been. But you need to fix yourself. You need to repair yourself. And only you can do this. Trust me, I know. As they say, been there, done that. So I think maybe we can see each other again sometime. Dinner arrived and we tore into it, talking a little about life here in Golden Beach. She had lived here since she moved out of her apartment after her husband was arrested, a little more than 4 years. Little Linda was just over 5 years old. We finished our dinner and she drained her iced tea, looked at me and said, "Well, I look forward to seeing you around, Mr. Carlisle. Again, thank you from the bottom of my soul." She was collecting her belongings, cell phone, purse, car keys. Why do women spread their things out when they sit down to eat or talk? Don't know. Oh well. She rose and motioned for Linda to come. She extended her hand to me to shake, but the touch was a little more than a handshake, and it lasted a tad longer than was necessary. She smiled and they were out the door. I stood there, then sat back down, realizing she had stuck me with the check. The stinker. I smiled. Sally walked up and handed me the bill. She was grinning and said, "Don't screw this up, Sugar. She is the real deal, and she's worth the wait." So I paid and left to go home feeling, I don't know what, except that I felt better than I had in a long time. But I got the distinct impression I had been set up. The weeks rolled along, morphing into months, and I ran into Emma several times, even managing to take her and Linda out for ice cream once or twice. I was becoming human. The following morning, I showed up for breakfast as usual at the Marina restaurant, and then we put 2 small cabin cruisers in the water and serviced them for their owners, who would be there the following Friday evening. The week progressed, and on Thursday I was informed that there was a barbecue at the Lowell homestead tomorrow. My attendance was requested. I guess I'm having barbecue on Friday. Good thing it wasn't Lent. So I figured I would sleep in on Saturday after pigging out on Friday. Sounds good, don't you think? I was up and moving Friday and showed up for breakfast. I was totally oblivious to everything going out around me, but matters were coming to a head, and my decision was being helped along without my knowledge. The 2 families showed up for their boats, and I took over showing them what we had done, explained what they should pay attention to, our hours of operation, especially the fuel dock, and such all. They were weekenders and regulars, but not natives. As I got everything squared away and took care of a couple of mechanical projects I had running, it came on 4 and I punched out. I'm on the clock now. Cleaned up and went home to change my clothes. Clean t-shirt and clean jeans. After all, it was a barbecue and I was semi-family, and I was on my way. I arrived at the Lowell home, a sprawling ranch-style log home, about 5,000 square feet. It had a wraparound porch, a patio out back, and a hot tub adjacent to the pool. The pit fire and the barbecue were already smoking, and there was a small crowd. I was greeted by Mai, and after a quick hug and a kiss on the cheek, was thrown into the melee. Typical family gathering, with kids and spouses mingling, but I was almost immediately singled out by Mai Angelina, their daughter, their youngest child. She was a very prominent area lawyer, and she had been a Marine. She was very close with a young doctor, and everyone hoped it was serious. We'll see. But here she was, alone and focused on me. "Jim, how are you doing? I have only met you 2 or 3 times over the past 3 years, but what I have seen is a very positive impression. And what I have learned is equally good. A little sad and disturbing, but nothing that alters my opinion. And a certain individual has expressed a very serious interest in you. Can we talk?" Okay, I got nothing. I have just been blindsided by a young woman whom I knew casually, but had only good thoughts about. And what the hell was the other thing she said? Things she learned? When? How? Why? And the certain individual. Who and what was she talking about? Can we talk? Hell yeah, and we will. Yes, please, right away if you don't mind. I have more questions than answers. Can we? She was smiling and took my arm. We were joined by Mike and his wife Camille. They were grinning, probably at my obvious consternation and unrest. They guided me to a small table under a massive shade tree. We sat and I got hugs and handshakes, along with buds for me and Mike and white wine for the ladies. Why do women always opt for wine? Mike grinned at me. Budweiser. I think you're going to need it, but not too much, okay? I took a big gulp and my Angelina started. All right, let me get some things out there. I was assigned a mission about 1.5 years ago. Well, she is a Marine. I was pretty sure I knew who was responsible. I turned, searching for Joshua. There he was, socializing with a few people. Emma? and he cast a sideways, non-committal look in my direction. Stony, no admission, and right back to his conversation. Newark. Yeah, I knew. Wildfire, pay attention, troop. Now then. She was really enjoying this. Well, she is a Marine. As I said, I was tasked to get the skinny on your status. I have been in touch on your behalf with your attorney, L.W. Stearns. Now, don't get your skivvies in a knot. No one knows where you are or anything about you. But suffice it to say that we know quite a bit more about things than we did before. L.W. is sharp. He divulged nothing that you had not told us and confirmed everything you had. Then he asked what was on my mind. He never asked where you were, how you were, if you had thought about coming back, or anything. So I asked him what the status was back in Cicero, Illinois. This is what I learned. I am the only one who knows any of this. Even my parents don't have a clue. Yet. Just then, Robert, her young male friend, walked up and looked at her with a grin. He kissed the top of her head. Everything all right, honey? Yes, but I'm just starting my briefing. You can come back again in a while, honey, please, she said, smiling back at him. He returned the smile and cheerfully said, Okay, let me know, and left to rejoin the small party. My Angelina looked after him and shook her head. I want so much to let him in on everything, but he's not family, not yet. Soon, maybe. She shook her head again and turned back to me. Now, like I said, I am the only one who has the skinny, shall we say. I will lay it all out to everyone here, if you are okay with that, because we are all family, and like it or not, you are too. So are you ready? My insides were fighting to get out, and I was having trouble taking a deep breath. Mike stood and told me to take a drink as he finished his beer and went to get another. He returned with 2 buds and a bottle of iced tea. I think you've had enough alcohol, but you're going to have to stay hydrated for this. And I haven't even heard the story yet. He smirked a little and sat down. I turned to Angie, as she was known in the family. I need to know. I mean, how bad can it be? I'm not in jail yet, so let's have it. She continued to grin that grin. Yeah, she was really enjoying this. Well, it would appear after she returned home, she had a plan to get over your hissy fit and allow you to reclaim her. She was delusional. Then she entered the house. She freaked out and melted down. She thought you had killed yourself or been killed. She dialed 911 and spilled a somewhat coherent story about what had happened and what she had found. She kept screaming, "The smell, the smell." They said a unit was on the way to exit the house and stay on the line. But she had already hung up and called her parents. The police arrived, talked to her, and called for backup. She kept screaming about all the blood and the smell. They sat her down in a squad car, and then, when a second unit and a shift sergeant arrived, an officer stayed with her waiting for an ambulance, and the other 3 officers went inside. It only took about 20 minutes to clear the house, and they were back outside, stripping off their latex clothes while one of them closed the door and blocked it with police line tape. The sergeant and the other officer walked up to her and said one word. I have it on good authority that they were sporting disgusted looks on their faces and were a tad pissed off. By now she was on a roll and could barely contain herself. She laughed and sat up straight. Jim knew what was coming and grinned. Ketchup! The cops were puzzled and a little pissed. They wanted to know what was going on. About this time, her folks rolled up, and the circus really started to roll. The emails and things you had prepared had hit all over, and they were busy fielding phone calls from friends, family, and work associates. You created quite a fiasco. It was so bad she couldn't have spun it if she had wanted to. That's when the news trucks started to arrive. Angie grinned as she looked at me. Nice work, Jim. Mike and Camille looked at me like they were seeing me for the first time. Camille's mouth was hanging open, and all Mike could manage was, wow. Angie cleared her throat and resumed. So after the cops read her the riot act about false police reports and wasting their time, they left. Not so much the newsies. Mom and Dad bundled her into the house and immediately opened all the windows to air the place out. Then they blew up at the mess someone had created. They finally got the whole story out of her. Suffice it to say, her mother was mortified, and her father was pissed at both of you. Her for her slutty actions, you for running away. The feeding frenzy in the social media circles, being lambasted in the press and with family and friends. But it had just started. LW got a call and, as per the plan, had no idea where you were. Things just kept getting worse and worse. Her father finally had pretty much had it with her, and when they couldn't find you, told her to file for divorce. She was devastated. She let it drag for many months while she ran through the money you left her. It took almost 2 years for the divorce to become final. That's right, you've been single for almost 6 months. She got underwater with the house and had to sell it to prevent foreclosure. She lost her job for various reasons, and she started drinking and going out, hooking up with various nefarious characters. She got hooked on drugs and busted twice for solicitation and addiction. Your in-laws petitioned and got custody of the children. Your mother sees them quite regularly and frequently. Linda, not so much. As of last week, she is in a rehab clinic. She's a wreck. Your in-laws are about worn out, what with looking after the kids and riding herd on their promiscuous daughter. The fact that she's in rehab is a plus for them, but they are still at the end of their ropes. Your mother-in-law's health is failing, and your father-in-law's blood pressure is spiking. The mood had gotten quite somber, almost morose. About that time, Joshua and Mai had sauntered over and sat down. The man took up the conversation. Your family now knows everything. Mai and I know nothing. It's up to you what you want to share with us, son. The emphasis in his comment was unmistakable. The decision is on you. You've put it off long enough. There are other people involved besides you, some intimately, some wanting to be. With that, Emma walked up and stood beside me. Not too close, but not outside of the immediate group. I was wondering how much time I had before my world collapsed. But how could they not find me? I re-registered my truck, changed my driver's license, and I'm on the payroll here. Hell, I even paid my taxes last year. Mike blushed. Yeah, well, I had a hand in some of that. When you changed the registration on the truck and your driver's license, I pulled some strings at the local DMV. You filled out all the forms correctly. Then the forms were conveniently misfiled. And then there were the bolos that came through. Seems like they were misplaced and never followed up on. He was blushing and looking at his feet. Again, my Angelina spoke up. LW had been filing your taxes the first 2 years, so you owe him a little in taxes. Then last year he let you do your own. So in reality, no one cares. Not the government, not your in-laws, and certainly not the cops. Maybe your mom. She's a little worried. Your kids, too. They miss Daddy. Your ex? She's just pissed. At everything and everyone. She hesitated, growing quiet. Except for herself. She doesn't seem to be taking any responsibility for anything. Sorry, Jim, but that's about it. Mixes reached over and squeezed my shoulder. I looked up into her beautiful gray eyes. I smiled at her. I shuddered and started to shake. Not for the obvious reasons, but because I was a free man, and there were so many people concerned about me, pushing me to get everything made right. I rose. I think I need a little space to think things over. No more running, son. The time for that is over, said Joshua forcefully. I smiled. No, sir, you're right. No more running. I looked around at everyone. It's time to man up. I looked at Emma and motioned towards the river. Do you think someone can look after Linda while we take a little walk? She said to the assembled group. Camille stood. Don't worry, Emma. She'll be fine for a while. Emma grinned and said, thank you, to Camille and Mike. She took my hand and motioned for me to lead the way. Angelina rose, shook my hand, and hugged me. She then sat down and proceeded to bring her parents up to speed on the events just discussed. We walked towards a path that led north from the house, and within 15-20 moments, we were almost lost. The forest closed in so quickly. We walked for a few more minutes and came upon a large tree that had fallen above the riverbank. A very convenient place, and quite accessible to sit for a while. She drew me over to the tree and, flaring her sundress out, she sat gracefully, crossing her ankles, and looked up at me. With a mischievous grin on her face, she patted the trunk next to her and said, simply, sit. Sounded like a good idea, so I sat, studying the ground, my hands, the surrounding trees, the water, anything except the cute woman sitting next to me. For her part, she closed her eyes, smiling and breathing deeply. The smile was driving me crazy, like she knew exactly what she was going to say, to do, and how everything would work out. I would come to learn this woman was far more perceptive and focused than she appeared to be. I was just there. Essential, but only because she wanted this. Not so bad when you think about it. But I need to make things right. Finally, marshaling my thoughts, I turned to her. She was still smiling, eyes closed, almost like she was meditating and waiting for me to start. I spoke to her, hoping to gain some perspective. Emma, I think you need to know everything about me. I need to tell you my whole story. Okay, go ahead. I'm listening. She opened her eyes and turned to look at me. I sighed and took a deep breath. I told her everything. How my life had been destroyed by the heartless bitch. The decision I had made, right or wrong. The last 3+ years of my life. How I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror without breaking down and sobbing sometimes. How I didn't know what to do. I was lost, adrift, if you will. I filled in everything Angie had told us and a few personal items. It even sounded lame to me. Maybe I was finally coming to grips with everything. Then how the altercation with saving her and Linda had impacted me, and how her presence in my life from then on had helped me. I was wrung out when I finished and was sideways facing her. My mind was starting to form a plan, but I still wasn't sure if it was feasible. She, on the other hand, was looking on with amusement and chuckling out loud. So, unless I miss my guess, and I'm a pretty good guesser, you want to make me an honest woman. Not that we have anything to talk about, because you have been nothing short of honorable. I am duly impressed with your resolve. You are truly a man of exemplary character. She was glowing and looking at me with unadorned admiration and a tinge of lust, I think. Me? I was a bit awestruck and a tad embarrassed. I shelved everything I had tumbling around in my mind, and I took her hands in mine. A little forward, perhaps, and I think I caught her off guard. But she locked eyes with me. She held her breath and waited. I swallowed and started. What I think I want to do is have Angelina get hold of LW back in Illinois and see if I can get custody of my kids. I don't know exactly what my status is in the eyes of the courts, but I'm guessing it can't be any worse than hers, what with losing her teaching job, being busted twice, and being in rehab. Then I want to relocate them back here, where my life is now, along with my mother. She still has some years left, and after all the things she's been through, I think I owe her. First, though, I need to build a house, big enough to take care of all my family. All my family. Defends her gaze until she realized that it was back on her. She blinked and gasped. I think for the first time I was one up on her. Yeah, that didn't last long. So, let me understand this. You have feelings for me? Do? Yes. Yes, I guess so. Linda and me, my Linda, can be part of your family? Now it was my turn to smile. You got me. I am pretty sure I love you, or at least like you a lot, and I'm also pretty sure it will turn into love if we let it. With that, I leaned in and kissed her. Nothing sexy or lurid, just a kiss. Except she didn't see it that way. She turned it into a proposition right there. No excuses. I'm yours and you are mine, and that's that. Well, she took control again. I know a very reputable architect who, for a very nominal fee, because his wife and I are close personal friends, will draw up plans and file the permits once you figure out where you want to build. Meanwhile, we get Angelina to get with LW to work on your kids and get custody. You may have some outstanding legal expenses to take care of, too. We'll worry about that later. Then we see what we need to do. How does that sound? It should go to great lengths to make your local family happy, too. She was grinning like a Cheshire cat now. What do you say? I launched myself at her, and she shrieked in joy as we tumbled onto the leaves behind the log. The laughter and giggles degenerated into smiles, cuddles, and kisses. 45 minutes later, we returned to the party, still brushing leaves and grass off our clothes. A lot of grins and snickers were shed. We found out that Joshua and Mia were now up to speed with the events in my life. We told them everything that we had come up with and were planning to do, and Joshua and Mia were on board with it. Angie was officially retained as my local lawyer, at a family discount, of course, and would get in touch with LW on Monday to get the ball rolling. I sat and talked with Joshua about purchasing some property to build a house, with a small addition for my mom connected by a covered walkway. 6 feet up with its own stairway and ramp. The house itself would be 2,500 square feet and 5 bedrooms. I was planning for the future. I also made a pitch to Joshua and Mia to rent the place I was living in for Linda's parents. It was the least I could do if they wanted to live here with their grandchildren. I had always liked them, but I wasn't too sure how they felt about me right now or when I went after their grandchildren. We'll see. Emma and I sat down with the architect, and I told him what we wanted. Yeah, I had some help. He suggested some things, brought up a few ideas on his laptop, and gave me a ballpark figure. I was very appreciative of the price. This was a hell of a lot better than I thought it would be. I would get with the bank for a construction loan on Monday. Angie got with LW and one of his associates to discuss what I had outlined. He felt I would have to come back to prosecute my case. Since I started working for the marina, I have not taken any time off or any vacation. So I had almost 4 weeks worth of time off to use. Joshua said when I wanted to go to take care of business, I could use whatever I needed. My job would be waiting when I got home. Family was all he said. Meanwhile, Angie had come up with a unique slant to my appeal, and she and LW were burning the Skype and emails with conversations. Emma and I were proceeding with our relationship, but because of what's-her-name, I wanted to be sure, really sure. Young Linda, on the other hand, had stepped up her game to win me over. Her attitude had shifted considerably. She loved being with me and started holding my hand everywhere we went. She smiled almost constantly and was laughing a lot more around me. She even insisted on goodnight kisses and hugs. Her mother and I were ecstatic, and we were kissing and hugging more, but still no intimacy. I still felt broken, but Emma was patient and trying her best. Then Linda helped it along. When are you going to ask my mom to marry you? Because I'm getting old, and I really need a daddy. And you are a pretty good fit, don't you think? And this kid is only 5. My court case was proving to be not as tough as I was sure it would be. I really hadn't done anything illegal, maybe reprehensible, but nothing the state could complain about. Well, not too much. Her parents were on board with my plans, and to sweeten the deal, I told them about moving to be with us. Well, LW and Angie told them. They told them I thought they wouldn't want to talk to me. Their Linda must have really screwed the pooch on their end, as they were broken up and couldn't wait to talk to me and apologize. Like I said, moving along. 3 years. My end was going well. I had started a small company doing odd jobs and home improvements, and I now was running 2 3-man crews after work and on weekends, and feeling a lot better about myself. And my home became a cause celeb. It became like a barn raising. The pilings were sunk in a little less than 1 weekend, and after 4 weeks, the flooring, ramp, and staircase were erected. The rest went quickly, and within 2 months, the tin-roofed structure was done. I moved in, and Emma, Linda, Mai, Angelina, and Camille, with a big hand from Sally, took over the decorating. I got notice of the trial date in family court. Linda had gotten out of rehab and was fighting everything. LW had instituted procedures to sell the house before it got foreclosed on. So I packed up my truck, kissed my best girl goodbye, hugged the rest of my favorite females, and left for Cicero. Angie said she would fly out soon to be there for the trial. It was a strange feeling to return home after now almost 4 years away. My neighborhood hadn't changed much, but my house was a little under the weather. It didn't look like the grass had been cut in quite a while, and the walkways were badly in need of edging. The one garage door was bashed in, the other one was spray painted. The word whore was very noticeable. It appeared to have been renewed a couple of times, and at least one of the downstairs windows was busted and patched with plywood. But I just slowly drove past on my way to my mom's apartment. I was more interested in seeing her and apologizing for the grief I had caused. I shouldn't have worried. Mom met me at the door as I carried my duffel up to the doorway. She plastered me and hugged me, kissing my cheek, my neck, my arms, and any exposed skin she could find. So I guess I was pretty much forgiven. But her copious tears made me feel bad, and I wound up apologizing anyway. Her smile made it all better, and she dragged me inside and took my things to the spare bedroom, then returned with coffee. She told me LW would be here in a little while and we could all talk. Right now, she just wanted to look at me and hug me. Moms, go figure. 2 hours later, LW showed up with Penny Wilson in tow. They entered and LW hugged my mom and introduced Penny. Then we got down to business. It was Wednesday. Angie would arrive on Friday, and the family court proceedings would start the following Monday. LW outlined what they thought would be our chances, telling me that the judge we had drawn was a tough but fair guy who did not tolerate cheaters and adultery, but also held a dim view of fathers who would bail on the family. The luck of the draw. He told me a little about Linda's attorney and what their supposed legal tack would be. No taking the kids and back child support and a petition for spousal support, re-alimony. He would be going over our strategy with Angie, but he was confident that we had a winning hand. I sensed something that they weren't telling me, but for the life of me, I didn't have a clue. Friday arrived, and I drove to O'Hare Airport, about a 40-minute drive, and picked up the young lady I'd come to think of as a younger sister. I was greeted with an extended left hand and a glorious smile. I deadpanned and said, "Did you say yes?" She clocked me and started laughing. I grinned, thinking that it was things like this that I had missed during my journey of the last 4 years. Angelina brought me up to speed on the last week or so and told me that Robert Taylor, yeah, he got some grief on his name, but his mom thought it was cute, was on board with everything about my case. He has a great deal of respect for me. He liked me a lot. We pulled up at my mom's house, and I led her inside and introduced her to my mom. She was immediately accepted, actually maybe a little better liked than me. Go figure. The next day, we left for LW's office and went up to the 5th floor and down to the large conference room. We met up with LW and Penny and, after coffee, and got down to business. They laid out everything we had discussed and then some, as Angie brought everyone up to speed on some things she had turned up in her research. All incidental but most germane to our case. But the planning session was decidedly upbeat on everyone else's part, probably for my benefit, but I had a nagging suspicion I had not been given the whole package. But I was assured that was not the case and everything was fine. Maybe I was just being nervous. Angie wrapped everything up by saying that I was in pretty good shape. Monday would be the beginning of the end, and everything would turn out fine. I felt like I was being conned, but I couldn't tell why. I smiled and said thanks. They were right. It was out of my hands and in theirs. My life was about to be fixed. Finally, I hoped. I said a quick prayer and promised myself to get to church tomorrow. We adjourned and left for home. Mom had dinner ready, but I couldn't tell you what we ate. After a quick repast, I excused myself, went and took a shower, and turned in. 9 p.m. I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned, murmuring every prayer I could remember from my youth, and made up a few. St. Michael and the Blessed Virgin got a long earful, and I didn't bother the Father or the Son too much, as I figured they would not take too kindly to my whining. I must have fallen asleep as the sun peeked through the window at 6:30 the following morning. I woke, went and peed, brushed my teeth and shaved, then brushed and left to get some coffee. Then I made 8 a.m. Mass. I knelt in the back and prayed. I didn't take communion and didn't even rise all through the service. Just kept my head down and prayed. Finally, someone came after Mass to tell me that the 10 o'clock Mass was going to start soon if I wanted to stay. I shuddered and rose, thanking the older man, and left amidst a few weird looks. I drove around for hours, finally winding up at the lake shore in the cold wind till 6 p.m. Then I went home. I arrived to a very distraught mother who was worried for my absence. I assured her I was fine, just needed some time alone. In point of fact, I did feel better, sort of at peace. I ate a bologna sandwich, just like in my youth, drank a Coke, kissed my mother goodnight, and turned in. I smiled at Angie as I went to the spare room, not much more than a closet, and said, "Thank you to the Almighty." I guess I was as ready as I would ever be. Monday morning dawned bright and clear, a tad cool, but it was early April. The court proceeding would begin at 9 o'clock, sharp by LW's admission, so I got there at 8:40. Sharp. I walked into the Cook County Courthouse, looking for room 319. I found it, and there were LW, Angie, and Penny, just getting to the courtroom door. We shook hands as they exchanged pleasantries. That was when I saw her, Linda. She came off the elevator with her 2 attorneys, I assumed, and lo and behold, Dee and Jane in tow. At first, she didn't see me, just the others in my group, and she made her way to the courtroom doors. But as she stopped and the one man opened the door, Dee gasped and elbowed her. She stopped, words were exchanged, and she turned, staring straight at me. The same face I'd loved for 12 years, but now she looked like crap. Haggard, wrinkled, blotchy complexion, slightly overweight. Makeup didn't help. The years had not been kind. I knew at the 4 years I'd spent working outside and eating right, I was in decent shape, so I felt slightly smug. She made a move towards me, but the 2 bitches and her male cohorts restrained her and ushered her into the courtroom. Angie moved closer to me. "She looks rough, Jim." "Yeah," I said. "Too bad, huh?" Kind of cold, and it took Angie off guard a little, but in the end, she understood. We waited around a few minutes and were just about to enter ourselves when the elevator doors opened again and out came my mother and Linda's parents. Shocked? You bet. They came over to us and my mom hugged me, followed by Linda's mom, and then her dad reached out and shook my hand. Okay, stunned, pushed shocked out of the way and held sway. I choked and stuttered, then said, "Linda just went inside." That's nice, but we're here for you. She had her chance, son. Now it's your turn. Just be civil. Clang, I lost it and wrapped him in a bear hug. Thanks, Dad. We turned and went into the courtroom. We made our way to the plaintiff's table and took our seats. Mom and Linda's folks sat in the gallery behind me. There were maybe 3 or 4 other individuals, 2 of whom looked like they might be reporters or such, young but almost bored looking. Linda's entourage sat behind her and her 2 lawyers at the defendant's table and exchanged glares with us and Linda's parents. At 5 minutes past 9, the bailiff rose and spoke, just as the door to the back of the courtroom opened. Hear ye, all rise for the Honorable Thomas Kincaid, Family Court Justice. Court is now in session. Case 213, James R. Carlisle versus Linda Kramer, in the matter of custody of 2 minor children, Emma Louise Carlisle, 12 years old, and Thomas James Carlisle, 9 years old. Also under question are child support and spousal support. Please be seated. The judge had reached the podium and sat down, gathering his gavel and rapping once. Thank you, bailiff. Court will come to order. Are the interested parties present? Linda Kramer, defendant, Your Honor. I am John Schultz, representing Ms. Kramer. Louis W. Stearns, representing the plaintiff James Carlisle, Your Honor. All right, this is what appears to be a fairly straightforward case. Ms. Kramer, your former husband is suing for custody of your 2 minor children, and to be able to take them out of state. Is this true? Rising, she addressed the judge. Yes, Your Honor. He believes I am an unfit mother and would take my babies away from me. Presidential. I see. The 2 of you are divorced, correct? Yes, Your Honor. May I ask why you got divorced? At this point, I about leaped from my seat, but LW grabbed my arm, shushed me, and murmured, Not yet. He was sitting upright, tapping his pen on a legal pad, listening. Linda sniffled. We had gone out for a night and weekend with our friends. It was the end of February, and we were celebrating a very bad month being over. We were at Morrison's, dancing, and Jim and I had an argument, and he... out of his seat like a cannon shot. Objection, Your Honor, he shouted. Caught the judge by surprise. The judge turned, stared at LW, and asked, On what grounds? Ms. Kramer is lying. Windshield, at this point, Mr. Schultz rose and said, Your Honor, there is no need for this assault on my client's reputation. This has no bearing on the case. Pregnant, the judge thought for a moment. It appears there is more here than meets the eye. Objection sustained, but I'm not sure what's to be gained by this. Miss Kramer is not under oath yet, so let's see what is happening here. The 2 lawyers sat as the judge motioned for them to resume their seats. He returned his look to Linda. Now, Ms. Kramer, suppose you tell us what really happened. Linda paled, squirmed, and looked around pleadingly. She was panicking. I can't, I won't. It's not what you think. Her lawyer rose again. Your Honor, there is no reason to bring up any question of sexual improprieties. They are not germane this proceeding. Receiver, if LW could smile any wider, his face would have split in 2. Angie was even smirking. The judge raised his eyebrows. Sexual improprieties? Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Kramer, would you care to explain? Linda just shrunk farther into herself. She couldn't raise her eyes nor say a word. The judge thought for a moment. Do you think you can tell us honestly what transpired that night, Miss Kramer? You're not under oath, but we can swear you in if necessary. I won't. You can't make me. Now the judge was puzzled. He turned to LW and asked, Can Mr. Carlisle be forthcoming as to what happened that night, Mr. Stearns? LW turned and looked at me. I almost jumped up and burst out with, Put me under oath, Your Honor. I'll tell you what happened. Unless I object, Your Honor. It was Schultz. He sensed that things were about to get nasty. There is no reason to hear a biased, one-sided account of what happened that night. Objection overruled, Counselor. Bailiff? The bailiff picked up the Bible and strode over to the plaintiff's table. Place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony you are about to give before this court is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so far as you know it? So help you God? I stared right at him. I do? Wagey smiled at me and said, State your name and address for the record. James Carlisle, Hideaway Marina, Golden Beach, Maryland. Thank you, sir. He turned and walked back to his small desk. The judge looked from me to Linda. So, Mr. Carlisle, what can you tell us about that night? I looked at the judge. I told him exactly what happened, from the time we left our home till the time Linda left to go to the ladies' room. I left nothing out. Then I swiveled to look at my former wife, who was not having a good time listening to the tale. Holding her eyes, I continued. She left me. She never said a word, never told me what she was going to do. She left and did not come back. She went away for a night of extramarital sex with another man, Marc Lavaliere. There was no discussion, ultimatum, asking for permission, argument, pleading, or explanation. She just left me. So I went home and left her, just like she did me. I'm not proud of what I did, but there didn't seem to be any choice. Just like she did to me. I hesitated. At least, I left her a note. There was silence in the courtroom, broken only by the sobs at Linda's table. Then she exploded. You left me. You abandoned me. And our 2 children, you bastard. Just like you did, Linda, I growled back. The judge managed to bang the gavel twice. I will have order, or I will hold you both in contempt. Her lawyer was fuming. He didn't want this bought in, definitely not by me at the judge's behest. The judge was leaning back and contemplating the 2 of us. Then he sat forward. Ms. Kramer, is Mr. Carlisle's account accurate? Is what he said true? Answer truthfully, Ms. Kramer. A lot depends on it. Linda was devastated. Her whole life, her fantasy night of wonderful sex, her imaginary fairy tale of paradise was gone in the cold light of day. She sagged and crumbled to her chair. Ms. Kramer, I'm waiting. She heaved a sigh of defeat. Looking up and finding the judge's stern visage looking down at her, she blubbered, Yes, sir. Everything he said is true. I screwed up. The judge blinked and turned to me. Well, Mr. Carlisle, I completely empathize with your situation and the amount of stress you must have been feeling. But this does not alter the fact that you abandoned your family for almost 4 years. That is not good, sir. I bristled with indignation and was about to probably wind up in jail when Angie rose, grabbed my arm, pulled me to my seat, and stared through me. She then turned to the judge. If it pleases the court, Your Honor, I would like to speak on Mr. Carlisle's behalf. The shoe was about to drop. And you are, the judge intoned, My Angelina Lowell, Your Honor. I am the attorney of record in Maryland representing Mr. Carlisle. I believe there are some people you need to meet. Oh, boy. With that, the doors in the back opened, and in walked Mr. and Mrs. Joshua Lowell, Master Sergeant Joshua Lowell, Jr., Mr. and Mrs. Michael Lowell, Joseph Lowell, and Mrs. Sally Armstrong. They walked up and took the row behind my mom and in-laws. Angie was in rare form. The judge was wondering who was in charge. He was kind of sure it wasn't him. Your Honor, if it pleases the court, may I introduce my father, Mr. Joshua Lowell, Gunnery Sergeant USMC retired and president of Hideaway Marina. My mother, Mrs. Mai Lowell, owner of Hideaway Marina Restaurant and Grill. My oldest brother, Master Sergeant Joshua Lowell, Jr., USMC active duty assigned to Norfolk Naval Base. Deputy Sheriff Michael Lowell of the St. Mary's County Sheriff's Department, and my number 2 brother, his wife Camille, assistant principal at Eads Elementary School in Golden Beach, and also my only unofficial sister, forestry agent Joseph Lowell, who pilots helicopters for the state, because, as the black sheep of our family, he attended the U.S. Air Force Academy and became a pilot. This drew some chuckles from the court and a sedate smile from the judge. Everyone was dressed in their Sunday best, except for Joshua Jr., Michael, and Joseph. Joshua Jr. was dressed in Class C service khakis, complete with a cunt cap in his belt and enough fruit salad on his chest to feed a small village. Mike was in full service uniform with a sidearm, and Joseph had his service green flight suit on. And last but not least, Mrs. Sally Armstrong, owner of Sally's, the finest restaurant in Golden Beach. She turned back to the judge. My name is, as I said, Mia Angelina Lowell, attorney at law, from Baltimore, Maryland. I was a lieutenant in USMC and retired after having attended and graduated from the Naval Academy in Annapolis. We are all here in support of Mr. James Carlisle, our friend and brother for the last 4 years. At this point, Joshua cleared his throat. Your Honor, if I may? By all means, Mr. Lowell. He straightened more, if possible, and looked me square in the eye. Your Honor, when we first met James Carlisle, he was a broken man. He had a haunted look on his face and he was defeated. But he didn't appear to have given up yet. He was looking for a place to stay. He was interested in one of the cabins we have on our place at the marina. I decided to take a chance on him because I like to think I have a pretty good feel for people. And I felt good about him. I was not wrong. Another good decision I made. He has changed. I told him early on that he was broken and that he needed to fix himself. I kept an eye on him. He turned his face to look at the judge. He changed. He is not the same as he was 4 years ago. He's not done yet, but he's getting better. Joseph chimed in. I have not known Jim as long or as well as the rest of my family, but I can tell you, I agree with everything my dad said. I think Jim's a stand-up guy too. Joshua Jr. spoke up then. Your Honor, I have to go along with my younger brother. I haven't had much interaction with Mr. Carlisle, but what I've seen is in complete agreement with their assessment. He hesitated. Your Honor, Jim has no military experience. I took the liberty of checking your career. Major in the Army Legal Corps, before retiring and running for judge. Sir, in my opinion, Jim would have made a pretty decent grunt or gyrene, just saying. He sat down, at attention, if that was possible. Mike's turn. Your Honor, my wife and I have known Jim for about 4 years. I want you to know that we agree wholeheartedly. I would trust James Carlisle with my wife and children's safety in a minute. My kids call him Unca Jim. Don't tell him, but they think of him as the cool uncle. Jim also became a hero somewhat in the Golden Beach area. He saved a young woman and her daughter in an attempted robbery/carjacking. At great peril to himself, he stopped an armed assailant and disarmed him, saving the 2 young ladies. He looked at Camille and she looked at him, then at the judge and nodded. Sally was the last to speak. Jim Carlisle walked into my restaurant a tired, beaten, broken young man, Your Honor. I knew immediately that he needed help. I did not know at the time how hurt he was. Her stern look moved to latch onto the sobbing Linda. I do now. I also know that he is a fine man who has made great strides to repair himself. I am proud to consider him a surrogate grandson. She turned slightly to look at Jim's mom. Mrs., you did a fine job raising this young man. Wow, maybe I could run for president or something. I didn't know I was this good or this well liked. But it wasn't over yet. Your Honor, said Angie as the doors opened again, this is one more person who would like to speak. That's when the other shoe dropped. I spun, and there she was. Emma Lindell strode down to the railing behind me as I rose and approached her. But I stopped and stood there as she smiled, and then, with that self-satisfied smirk and confident air she has, she looked at the judge and spoke. Your Honor, if it pleases the court, may I speak on this man's behalf? Linda was seething, the color washing out of her face as she stared daggers at Emma. Yes, please, you are Mrs. Emma Lindell. I and the woman whom Jim saved in Golden Beach, Maryland from the robbers. Myself and my daughter, Linda. The courtroom exploded slightly. The judge banged once for order and silence returned. Go ahead, please, Mrs. Lindell. Criar, Your Honor, I have known James Carlisle directly and indirectly for about 1.5 years. I have only the highest regard for him. He is a fine, honorable man. The fact that her look had gravitated to Ms. Kramer with ill-concealed malevolence was not lost on anyone. I have grown quite close to him since he came to our rescue, but nothing inappropriate. I admit I would have liked more, but up until a few months ago, he still thought he was married, but it did not appear that his wife thought the same thing. Catfight anyone? Linda was losing it. Low venal comments to her attorney were threatening to overshadow the other dialogue in the courtroom. The judge banged once for silence and admonished Mr. Schultz to control his client's outbursts. Linda quieted and sunk down, muttering to herself. Emma continued, I was willing to wait as long as necessary for James to come around. This action concerning his children is a big step forward in his healing process. I hope it works out for him. He is a good man. I can only hope that the rest of his return to this world is as successful. As I said, I will be waiting for him. Silence. Then, I love him, Your Honor. Murmurs. The judge raised his eyebrows and the sounds ceased. The judge cleared his throat. Thank you, Mrs. Lindell. The court appreciates your testimony and your candor, and we will... Linda's shrieking, No! cut the air as she bolted up and raced down the aisle to the doors. The judge banged for order, instructing the bailiff to restrain the defendant. But it was too late. She was gone. Her attorney bolted up and asked for a continuation or recess or something, anything to allow him to talk to his client. The judge sighed and said there would be a 2-hour break for lunch, and we would reconvene at 2 p.m. this afternoon. All rise. The bailiff. The judge rose, shaking his head, and left. I turned to face Emma. So, you love me. I guess that makes it unanimous. She shook, her eyes bulging. What? She spluttered. Oh, come on, I know you're smarter than that. Surely you must know I love you, too. In an instant, her expression snapped back to a beautiful smile. Blushing, she responded, Well, I am sure I know now. I took her hands in mine and kissed her lightly on the lips. We turned, and my friends and relatives were smiling, chuckling, and blushing at our display of affection. We adjourned to a steakhouse a few blocks away and proceeded to get acquainted over lunch. My 2 lawyers felt very upbeat, especially Angie, who was quite pleased with her performance in bringing in my supporting cast. LW said if she ever gets bored in Maryland, she should look him up. He was confident he could find a place in his law firm for her. At about 1:45, we returned to court and were confronted by a defense team in turmoil. It appears their client was gone. Linda was nowhere to be found. The judge issued a bench warrant for her appearance, but her legal team had another fact to bring to bear. They approached the judge with signed, notarized documents, accepting my petition and waiving all parental rights. Stunned, that was all I had when LW and Angie came and told me what they were presenting. I thought for a moment and then asked what the legal ramifications were. My attorneys looked at each other and then LW said, None, son. You won. She's given you everything you wanted. You're already divorced. This is everything else. Angie chimed in with a reassuring hand on my arm. It's over, Jim. Take it and walk away. You don't even have to run. She asked for nothing. Like I said, stunned. It was over. I still had to go get my kids from school. They were unaware of the ongoing controversy, but that would soon change. It seems that the 2 reporter types, one from the local Cicero paper, the other from the Chicago Sun-Times, had not been able to talk to my ex-wife due to her vanishing. So now I was a person of interest. But LW intercepted them and said we would have a statement tomorrow after reviewing all applicable documents. Plunged. That will keep them busy for a day or two, and hopefully a man will bite a dog, and we won't be news anymore, he chuckled. We adjourned to the kids' school, and I came face to face with my children. Emma was now 12, and Tommy was almost 9. They burst out of the school, maintaining some semblance of order in line as they exited, till they saw their grandparents. All 3. This was different. They raced towards them and then stopped. They saw me, standing there with a woman they didn't recognize. They froze for an instant, then exploded. Dad! Daddy! They squealed. Then they were racing towards me and jumping all over me. Hugs and kisses, slobbering all over me. We missed you. Where were you? Where did you go? Why haven't you called? What happened? Why was Mommy so mad? Where is Mommy? Pennsylvania, no one had said anything to my children. Huh. How about that? I hugged them while Emma Lindell stood a few feet away, trying not to intrude. I rose and gestured to her. She slowly came forward. Kids, this is Mrs. Lindell. She is a good friend of mine. Why don't we go home with Graham and Gramps and get some dinner and meet some other good friends of mine and have a good time? They looked back and forth and then said, Okay, and grabbed their backpacks, and we moved towards Graham and Gramps' car because they had car seats. Note to self, upgrade necessary. We went home to Graham and Gramps, and they piled out to the party unfolding in the backyard. Now for the hard part. After everyone was fed and the kids were told they would miss school tomorrow, yay! We moved off to the backyard. It was crunch time. There was me, 3 grandparents, LW and Angie, and, at my insistence, Emma Lindell. I explained to the kids that their mother was gone. I didn't know where, and we would try to find her. But she had left all of us. They were a tad pissed. But it appeared it was a common occurrence for her to disappear occasionally. One of the reasons that her parents had petitioned for custody when Linda started going off the rails. In fact, they were full-time living at her parents' house, with all their belongings and clothing there. The permanent residence was Graham and Gramps' house, and my mom spent a lot of time there as well. Well, here's the deal, guys. I went to court to get custody of you two. Your grandparents are on board with this. I won the action, and your mother agreed to it. You have a decision to make. You can come and live with me, or stay here with Gram and Gramps. Your choice. I don't want to upset your life any more than it has been already. I will answer any questions you have as I feel you can understand the answers. But some of the things are a little more than you can understand. It was my daughter who spoke first. She cheated on you, didn't she, Daddy? There were different guys every few weeks for a long time. They were horrible. Yucky, Dad, from Tommy. That Mark guy was the worst. He was always grabbing Mom and taking her up to your room. They made a lot of noise. Crack, it wasn't hard to have no compassion for my ex-wife. Then he stopped coming around and Mom started going out on Fridays, then Saturdays, then all weekend long. She would bring home different men to where we had to go and lock ourselves in my room. It got so we would finally lock ourselves in your basement tool room when she left. We missed a lot of school. Sometimes she would get home and not even bother to look for us. Then one day the police came, along with Gram and Gramps. By this time their grandparents were in tears, rocking back and forth, holding each other. All three of them. Grandpa spoke. That was the first time she was arrested. Our lawyer got us custody, and that was when she filed for divorce. She couldn't find you. She had run through most of the money she had, and she had just lost her job. She had to post in the newspapers and wait 2 years, which she did. One day, a Saturday when she was missing, we went and got all the kids' things. I don't know if she even noticed. She seldom came to check on them. Then she got busted a second time. She got sick and was put into rehab. Then, after she got out, she got a notice from LW about the lawsuit, and here we are. Dismay, the silence was oppressive as it hung over everyone. I know the kids didn't miss that Emma Lindell was sitting much closer to me and squeezing my hand. Tommy piped up, "Is she your girlfriend?" Canceled. I blushed and stared at the floor. Kinda. Emma recoiled slightly and slugged me. Little Emma giggled and leaned over to Tommy. "Oh, yeah, she's his girlfriend, all right." Then it took a different turn. "You know my name is Emma, too," she said, staring at my girlfriend. Emma straightened and looked at my 12-year-old daughter. "Yes, I was aware of that. My name is actually Emmeline, but my friends call me Emma. I like it." Little Emma stared at Big Emma. "My name is actually Emily, but I like Emma, too. That's what all my friends call me." No problems here, I thought. My son, on the other hand, was taking all this in. He may be 9 years old, but he had my brains, I think. He turned to me. "I think she's a keeper, Dad." He also skewered me with his gaze. "What do you think?" I stared at him. This was going better than my wildest dreams had hoped. "I think so too, son." So we hashed out a lot of things over the next 2 days. I laid out my ideas to my in-laws and my mom. I explained the house I had built, my proposal for them to sell their home, and my mom to sell hers and move to Maryland. The kids were on board with moving, especially when they learned their grandparents would be coming too. Yeah, the older folks were on board too, figuring they needed the change of scenery. We made arrangements, seeing as how Linda was, poof, gone, disappeared. He also helped Mom with listing her house. She went through the house, had a big garage/yard sale, donated a bunch of stuff to charity, and had everything else boxed up to be shipped. My in-laws listed their house and did the same with a lot of their belongings. Then they rented a 40-foot box truck and proceeded to pack it. The kids had gone back to school, and we got all the necessary forms and paperwork to move their lives to Maryland. I stuck around to help. We would be driving back, with the kids and in-laws riding in their car, and my mom and I in their loaded truck. 3 motel rooms on the one night, and we were back in Golden Beach. Camille had several good counselors/therapists attached to the school who would be talking to the kids, but they seemed to be handling it fine. So far. Still no sign of Linda. We pulled up and I showed my kids and folks our new home. The place I had for my in-laws was only about 5 minutes away, within walking distance. So after leaving my mom and the kids to pore over the house and stake out bedrooms, we drove to their new place. We were met by Mai and Camille, and they were given the grand tour and the keys. They loved it. While everyone got reacquainted, I walked back to my house, and there was Emma and Linda on the porch, chatting with the rest of my clan. I climbed the stairs and was immediately met by my daughter. The withering look stopped me in my tracks. "So, I am going to have another sister too, in addition to a new mother?" Yeah, I guess so. Did I fail to mention this?" She stared at me. Then she broke down in grins and tears. Thank you, Daddy. She rushed to me and wrapped me up in a bear hug. Tommy walked up and said now he knew why so many bedrooms, but he wouldn't look me square in the eye. Gotta keep an eye on that boy. My guy showed up, and within a couple of hours, my in-laws were unloaded and set up. Just needed to unpack. Mom's stuff was the same, as it had been delivered a few days before in a small storage container. I thanked everyone, sprang for dinner at Sally's, and checked my bank account. I needed to get back to work. Life resumed, fueled by two young people in the same house, getting used to new environs and places. Linda bonded, and there immediately started a progesterone-fueled reaction in my family. Tommy and I became closer because it became a us versus them contest. Good-natured, but if you have kids, it changed. They excelled in school and would start on level the following year. Emma and I got married in the middle of August, a small ceremony, and honeymooned in New Orleans. I was still building my business and my bank account back up, but we didn't see much outside of the hotel room and the restaurant, so the somewhat warm weather never entered into it or anything. Linda got me. Couldn't find her. She does that a lot. So I have rebuilt my shattered existence with the help of some really good friends, some fine relatives, new and old, and a fine, loyal, loving, insatiable, sorry, hun, new wife. I am lucky. Did I make the right call all those years ago? Maybe. I think I made a call, possibly the only one I could. I lucked out. That's all I can say for sure. Epilogue. No, there is no bun in the oven, as they say, though not for lack of trying. Our kids seem to think we're too old for that, but who knows? We'll see. We're happy. That's all I care about. Now, I tried, but I can't let it go. Mark, after a lackluster season and repeated news reports on his exploits off the field, was traded to the New York Jets. The first year there, he was out partying at a popular night spot in Manhattan and set his sights on the wrong woman. 2, not bad. He disappeared. 3 weeks later, his badly mutilated and partially consumed body washed up on a beach on Staten Island. No definite cause of death, but 2 .22 caliber bullet wounds in the head seem to suggest otherwise. I think that covers everything. This is my call on this series, probably not the last, but it is for me. Thank you for reading. Now lighten up. Do you know how the moon cuts his hair? Wait for it. He eclipsed it. All my grandchildren hated this one, which means I had to share it. Again, thank you.